Welcome back to Technologies Now, the Business Edge. And this is a broker's perspective where we sit down with brokerage owners and managing brokers to unpack what's working in real estate right now. Leadership, recruiting, operations, client experience, and the tech that actually moves the needle. I'm your host, David Urbach, and today's guest is Joan Brothers, CEO and real estate broker at Manhattan Boutique Real Estate in New York City. Joan has built MBRE around a boutique by choice model, high-touch service, small client roster, and a disciplined approach to guiding buyers, sellers, and investors through one of the most competitive markets in the world. And even with the boutique focus, MBRE has completed more than $500 million in real estate transactions, which tells you a lot about the standards she runs and the trust she's built in the market. Joan, welcome to the show.
David, thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm so excited to be here. And I think those numbers sort of represent New York City. That's one of the things that just the sheer volume and the number of years that I've been in business. But I'm so happy to chat with you and I'm fascinated by what you do. So looking forward.
All right, fantastic. Well, let's start right at the beginning here. You came into real estate with a unique mix, international family interests, an MBA, lots of experience. How did your background shape the way you operate today?
I don't think it's changed much. I've always loved the international or globalist sort of point of view. And New York City to me is like the island off of a country. Of course, we're part of the United States, but it also represents that sort of global approach because our clients, about 50% of our clients are global, but even the 50% that are local have a lot of global flavor to them. To be honest, that hasn't changed. Always been interested in the global perspective, always been interested in international business. And so that was always a driving force from my MBA to the corporate world and then to the world of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, absolutely. That is very interesting. So you've brought this into your work here. So tell us about your brokerage, your real estate journey. Sure. And how that has developed, and tell me what's going on now.
Absolutely. You know, obviously I will say I had no idea. And tell me a little bit of how you want me to cater to the group that we're speaking to. Is this real estate people or just general people, or give me a little bit of a flavor if you don't mind.
General, yeah, definitely real estate people, but general people. You know, we like entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Entrepreneurs in the show, you know, that flavor. But we do have a mix. I mean, we had a guy from BOMA, the Building Owners and Managers Association, on just the other day. So we want stories. So we want to hear your story.
I got you.
Yes.
All right. Well, the truth is, I had no idea really about real estate in my business career before I got to know about real estate. I mean, I was just thinking corporate. I was thinking I was heading to Hong Kong as an expat. That was sort of the dream or the trajectory. But when I was in the corporate world and then being in New York, which I love and really had no intention to leave in reality, I sort of refreshed my idea of what it was to be a corporate person. And I thought, I'm not so sure I really want to do this for the rest of my life. And having met a few entrepreneurs in my early 20s, I thought, this looks a little bit more interesting. I had a sort of a chance experience of meeting some people in real estate. And I think they thought I was going to jump towards commercial real estate, which of course is maybe considered more professional than resi. The commercial people would say it's resi. That's the term. But residential was always attractive to me because it attracted international people into the city. It sort of was with what I like to do and who I like to socialize with. And so I ended up going into, from a very corporate background at Mitsui, the Japanese trading company, which was fascinating, to ending up in an entrepreneurship role of real estate and developing my real estate abilities with a lot of different types of people, ending up in the world of residential, which I then established my own company fairly quickly. So I've been in business over 15 years, and I've ended up having different life circumstances where I was able to use my career to still be as exciting and as out there as I wanted, or just taking things slowly because I might have had more personal things like raising a child in New York City, that kind of thing. So you can have a life of business and pleasure or personal, and it's pretty amazing in the world of real estate that no book ever tells you, and you couldn't possibly know. But it was kind of an interesting experience that it really worked for me. And now that my child is gone, long gone, I've loved being able to be more aggressive globally and do real estate advisement globally because I love to travel, and of course, keep the core business in New York for our clientele. So it's been a fun journey, no question about it. It's been a lot of fun. I'm sure you find many of your people that you interview have had surprise zigzags in their career.
Yes, that's almost. There's hardly anyone I talk to that's in real estate that's a broker that has had a very direct path to it. It really has
Yes.
not happened. I'd say I can count on one hand or less, and that, hey, I always wanted to do real estate because I saw someone doing this and someone had modeled it for them, early on, and they
Mhm.
just, stuck with that. They're like, this is what I'm going to do. And
Yeah.
that's been one out of, I think we're on podcast 33 now. So yeah, it's just not usually the regular path. And
No.
you obviously had a different path, but that is a really interesting concept to talk about how you can throttle up and throttle down your business based on what's going on in your life, which you
Yeah.
can't do in a corporate setting. I mean, it doesn't
Not
work
at
that way.
all. I think that was lucky just by accident. Couldn't have possibly replicated that. And I don't think there are many industries you could replicate that in that I can think of, to be honest with you.
No, that is interesting. Even any other type of entrepreneurial business, you have all this overhead typically or often. I can say
Hmm. Yeah.
typically it depends on your business if it's service or product related or that sort of thing. But you're going to have overhead and you're going to have employees and these sorts of things that you need to keep business going. So you got to keep that throttle going. I
Yeah.
think is how I was
Nice.
describing it before.
True.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. So tell us more about that international aspect of what you do. How do you get into consulting internationally in the space? Because most people think real estate, you broker, you have an area that you work
Right.
on advertising and referrals and these sorts of things, but it doesn't usually extend beyond the borders of the farm area, realistically.
Right, right. We mine our farm, right? Well, I always have had international friends. Real estate is really about relationships, and I'm in the people business. That's what we are. And many businesses, you're in the people business. Probably almost every business, you're in the people business. But in real estate, particularly so. And also, very interested, I'm a very social person, very interested in a lot of just communications and the social piece of thing. And that really is honestly what real estate's about. It's about connections, it's about referrals, which is through your connections.
Right?
So that's probably the most challenging part for younger people to get into the business, because where do you get the connections? You kind of get connections over time, unless you're younger and somehow connected, which happens too, or you're a particularly good salesperson. But no, it's absolutely about having been interested in international and developed that for myself, for my social structure, and then pushing it in New York, which supports that kind of thing.
Oh yes, you're in the perfect area. The most one of the most international cities, arguably. Like you said, it's what'd you call it? Was it like an island outside of like the
It's
rest of
island off the US. But I mean, of
island off
course,
the U.S. There we go. You didn't
it's
claim
the
it's a different
US.
country
There's
or
no
anything.
question.
Right.
And very proud about, being where I'm from in both cases. But really just it's such a unique place, because one of the things I love about New York is that you walk off the streets and something's changing all the time. So you're never bored. And then on top of it, you can go down half a block and you'll hear five different languages, maybe even 10 being spoken.
Hmm.
And if you go within different neighborhoods, you can have, I think, every kind of different cuisine possible. So it's really amazing, because I could never be bored in New York City. There's just way too much going on. So I have to say that's sort of sells itself, I have to say, from that standpoint.
Yes. So your business within New York City, what are
Hmm.
people shopping for? Who are you helping? You say they're often coming in from
Sure.
out of the country, but they're often local. What are they looking for? What's it that
It
people need?
varies tremendously year to year. And so it's interesting. We'll see what 2026 holds. I think that people will still be always shopping. Like we said, New York City is kind of that place where people first come into the city. They get their first job, they fall in love, they perhaps raise a family, maybe they move away, but they really get their first taste of city living, and maybe they're like, forget it. I want to be in the suburbs. I want to be in the mountains far away. I want to ski every day. But it might be their first taste. And so when something like that happens, it is not surprising that worldwide a lot of families support their young professional person or their young person, helping them buy a place. So that's sort of a market that's always existed in New York, which I don't see changing. As far as the dynamics of international people buying, that changes with geopolitical situations all the time. As far as local New Yorkers, it's a question of interest rates. It's a question of how they feel about the market, how they feel about New York. So probably the more interesting part of it is for 2026 is the geopolitical. Let's see where it goes. Let's see what happens. We shall see. So
Oh my gosh, we shall
yeah.
see, and that could change, overnight at any night.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've always discovered in my 20 plus years of New York City real estate is that New York City real estate is like seen like you could say gold because gold's hot now. But I mean, it's really asset protection. You put your money somewhere, it keeps its value. Sometimes it dips a little bit. Of course, it could go up quite a tremendous amount, but you feel like you've solidly left some money somewhere. So it's an asset diversification portfolio strategy. So I think like that's really the key for New York. And it's, as we get into New York City properties and more things like that happening, I feel like technology, which your specialty is in, is becoming more important in a lot of different ways. And I think it's very helpful in a million different components. But I will say that I think people still need to come and touch and feel real estate because it's not $5.50. You do need to, think about it a little bit.
Yes. Well, it is the most tangible thing we invest in, right? I mean,
Yes,
even when you buy gold, you don't see gold unless you put gold bars in your safe or whatever it happens to be.
right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's the most fun you can have, with your assets, so to speak, because you can actually use it.
right. That's true. That's true. I've heard people argue that, real estate's not a good investment because you have to pay, assuming you have a mortgage, you pay to live there. So you're
Mhm.
paying for something, but it is an asset that almost always goes up. I mean, over time it goes up, right?
Right.
And you're saying the New York City market. So when we talk New York City, we talking Manhattan or the boroughs or
Mostly Manhattan, but Brooklyn's super cool. Brooklyn's sometimes nowadays making Manhattan look very dull.
oh,
But yeah, yeah. So,
Manhattan will have none of that.
well, I mean, now that and again, another thing, which is another dynamic where corporations are making their employees no longer work from home, but work at the office. Novel concept. There's going to be a shift there too. But there was a lot of people who went to Brooklyn because they didn't have young professionals. It was a more hot market there who went there. But we'll see. We'll see again. I don't think Manhattan will ever lose its appeal because it's the center. It's like the rest of the world calls it CBD, Central Business District. We don't call it that, but in essence, that's what it is for the most part. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is kind of the center of the world. Just ask the people that live there, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, I hate to be so,
No,
but
yeah,
I think it's the center of the world. But I think there's some fabulous cities out there, and I can understand why people would want to live in other places too. But also, I think there are a lot of people who utilize New York from the standpoint of being a technology hub or finance hub and have a property here that they can allow other people to use. There's a multitude of reasons why people would hold real estate in their asset portfolio, not just for themselves to live and, as you said, appreciate, but also for other reasons of it's good for their portfolio, for their company. Maybe they live here a couple of months a year. Maybe they rent it out sometimes, that sort of thing.
yep. No, that makes sense. So that's not going to change anytime soon. People are always going to want to be there.
We
It's
always
still hard.
hope so. I think it's held the test of time, but I hope it continues to do so. And I do believe it will.
Sure, it will. Yes. So if someone has fleeing to the suburbs, do you work with them as well, or is that just not your market so
Sure,
much?
because if somebody's relocating from this country or from a corporation and they want to go to Westchester, which is one of the suburbs outside of New York City, we have people that we refer there. Just as, for example, we had when we were in Abu Dhabi, we were at the F1 and we had somebody who we encountered who said, I really want a place in Saint Tropez. We made sure to get them from Abu Dhabi to Saint Tropez. We are not experts in Saint Tropez, but we know people who we can trust, who will provide good service and provide honest, work and get them to the right spot. So something like that, just as much New York City to Westchester, absolutely. New Jersey, Connecticut, all of those spots.
All right. No, that
Yeah. Sorry,
no,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
David.
I was gonna say, well, that makes perfect sense because you started this saying it's all about the network. Building your
Yes,
network and being
absolutely.
a resource.
Why not? It's naturally who I am, number one. And number two, it's good business. So why not?
Yes, absolutely. So, if you had to do all this over again, would you start in corporate, or where would you start your professional career?
So it's kind of funny. We ended up doing the largest deal. We're a woman-owned firm. And so we were put on board with one of the largest firms, Newmark, in New York City, but I think it's nationally one of the largest commercial firms. And we relocated the New York State Empire State Development, which includes the governor's office. And it was turned out in 2023 to be one of the largest deals, which is, usually they're
I like that.
million square foot deals. This was like less than 200,000, but it's still big. So we were part of that. And it was fun to go through the process with this team. They were very positive as we went through it. The actual client was fantastic. It was a really fun process, but I wouldn't give up residential. I really enjoyed the commercial part of it, but it's a business piece. It's purely business. Somehow I really like getting to know the clients from start to finish. And then, there's always moments in there where everybody's a little frustrated about this or that because it's a whole process in New York. But at the end of the day, we are so close to so many of our clients and they're really interesting people that I really wouldn't give that up. That's been part of, in a weird way, my life story. So
Yes.
wouldn't give it up.
No, that's great. So things have gone perfectly for you. Perfectly, of course, nothing's ever perfect, but
No, of
the
course.
path seems very aligned with you completely. So that does make sense. Because the business, commercial deals are how many of our employees can we house here? What kind of
Mhm.
build out can we get? Blah blah blah. As opposed to, oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. I can just picture walking up these steps,
Mhm.
this brownstone, and this is where I live,
Yes.
and I'd be proud to show it to everybody. So yeah, I can see. Is that
It's
kind of how it
it is
goes? Is that the difference?
Yeah, no, you're right on, David. I mean, honestly, it's funny because oddly enough, it was when we started, the team that I was working with all seemed to spend a lot of time together. They all got sick together. So they said, well, we're sending in our esteemed colleague, Joan Brothers, they were like probably very nervous about it because we hadn't really worked together. And I said, well, how do you want me to handle this? And they're like, just don't speak a lot. I'm like, okay, fine, but I'll
Jeez,
try my best.
right.
So don't say anything meaningful. So I found that my personal opinion, when I went into all these commercial spaces, we got to know each other much better. It was fine. But when I went into all these commercial buildings, it was fascinating because even like the owners of these huge commercial buildings were showing up in 2022, having done the deal in 2023, which is really unusual. I mean, people were really looking forward to getting more tenancy in there. And what my comment to the client, which was this governmental organization, and there were all these different heads of groups there, or heads of, the organization there,
Departments, yeah,
was,
yeah.
yeah, departments, thank you. They were saying, well, what do you think of the space? And I'm like, well, look at the windows here. The windows here are bigger. There's a whole wall of windows, or you can make this space really work. So I just tried to be as, non committal based on what my partners were asking me to do. But they really don't, they let the people look at the space and let them come up with their own ideas. And at the end of the transaction,
Interesting.
at the closing party, the funniest thing was the head of the organization was like, I always remember what you said, Joan, about look at the windows.
That's great. That's great.
So, I mean, I think it's just such a different way of coming at business. It's purely business, it's purely numbers to them. Their commercial brokers are almost like Wall Street with the numbers, with the analysis. It's such a business. But I think in the space, your people have to be really happy. And
Right.
it's really important. So taking that piece into it was of interest to me.
Well, and that makes perfect sense because you're right. In the end, they're going to spend all this time in this space, and
Hmm.
that's how you attract talent now too. I mean, if
Yes,
someone gets a
absolutely.
chance to work from home, or if you're going to make them work in an office, or trying to attract them to the office, that has to be a
Mhm.
nice office.
Oh,
Otherwise, they're
yeah.
going to choose another position, another job somewhere else. That's just how it
Absolutely.
works.
And it was a moment where we could level them up. It was just a joyous time because we could level them up from like a class B building to a class A building where there were amenities. So all of their employees could enjoy these amenities, go into the office, feel great, not far from a major train station, Grand Central.
Hmm.
So it was, and they saved at least, I think, 1.5 million a year. So it was a great There was a
That's
no, it was a win-win on every level.
yes. Except for the poor building that lost this tenant. Other than that,
Yeah,
can't worry about
that
that piece
that
of it.
was that exactly. But you have to. Weren't paying attention, I guess. Unfortunately for them. Yeah.
So, someone's moving to New York City. What do you
Hmm.
prepare them for? What advice do you give them? Like, is there a checklist of
Oh,
things that you just talk through?
sure. There's a checklist of things that, of course, they need to prepare for. But the truth is, in New York City, as in any major city, your dollar or your money doesn't go as far, and you have to make some compromises. So you have to decide what you're going to be interested in accepting and what is really your priority. Because there's always the issue of space, there's the issue of cost, there's the issue of location. So nothing is as you might see it originally, even frankly with the most unlimited budget. And I do prepare clients who have these super high budgets, that even if you're spending, like, let's take a rental, $50,000 a month, which would be a huge amount of money for most people. You're still not going to get everything you want. I think that's maybe the New York City lesson.
No matter no matter what, you're not going to get everything that you want.
Sorry, but it's true. Yep. So
Yeah.
you do prepare them, you try and manage expectations. It's very hard. It's a process that everybody goes to. I've had people who are like from the Middle East, countries that you think would be very bureaucratic. And then they come to New York and they're like, wow, this took a long time and it's more complicated than what I think I'm from. It just everything takes time. There's a little piece, whether it's buying or selling or renting, where you have to go through and you have to be approved. And in transactions around the world, I think there are very few places where other people need to approve you, whether again it's for rental, for sale, maybe townhouses, as you said, that brownstone that you're dreaming of. You don't really need to be approved for that, but of course maybe for a mortgage you need to be approved. But the New York City is the only place where you have to get that external okay. And that's all right. It'll happen, but people aren't quite used to exposing themselves in that manner. Yeah.
So, explain what approval you would need coming into New York City.
So most buildings in New York City, you look at New York City and you say, "Oh my God, there's so many places to live." But what I do tell them, and as you said, that's a checklist, is about 50% of the buildings that you're looking at are rental buildings. So they're not in terms of residential stock.
Hmm.
Commercial stock to residential stock is a whole different thing. But just looking at residential, 50% of those buildings are like rental buildings, which would be owned by one individual or corporation or conglomerate. And then the other 50%, of that 50%, you would have 25%, which are condominiums, and 75%, which are co-ops. Co-ops you usually can't rent. They're mostly for New Yorkers. They're more, you own shares, but the shares are associated with an apartment. A condominium, which most of the rest of the world understands, is a fee simple ownership. You can rent it, usually in New York City's case, 1 year plus. It's more of a investment property, but you can certainly live there. So in either case, in the case of the condominium, you have to be approved, but it's a very fairly easy approval. There is a way where they can reject you, but it's so unusual. Going to the co-op, you actually have to prove that you can financially afford what you're buying. And this is a big shocker for a lot of people because you have to show significant assets and income post closing, and different buildings are different ways. And you have to put down at least 20%, which again is different than a lot of places in the world. So it's, you in essence exposing yourself, and people don't like to do that financially, but in New York, no choice, no choice.
No, so you prep them with that. There's a co-op. We're going to go through some other process here. Believe me,
Yes.
it's a standard process. Come
Yes.
through, set the right expectations. I
Right.
think everything's all about setting the right expectations, of course. So I think that's just a no-brainer statement. But
No,
yeah,
you're absolutely right, but nobody likes it. I mean, we're so used to it in New York, being, having to prove who you are and what you are. So,
strangers.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Here's all my finances. Here's everything. Please let me
People
let me
feel
in.
naked. They feel very naked about that. Yeah, but but
Yeah,
there
that's
you
that's definitely different. But yeah, and reserved for the larger cities for sure.
yes.
And of course, New York, the center of the world, which is the theme, I believe, at this point. We're gonna. We're just gonna say that we will not name it anything detrimental like that. That's not how we play it.
Well,
Yeah. Tell us, Joan, tell us a
mhm.
story about, some great success you had with someone in the city, just a particular transaction that you really liked.
Hmm.
Then I'm going to ask you the opposite
I'll
question
tell you
of,
a fun one. Sure. Keep finish, and I have an idea of something your viewership might like. But give me the parameters one more time.
oh, it's just, um, tell us a story about a client that you worked with that was
Okay.
really fantastic to work with, and then contrast that with someone who's been really terrible. And please don't name any names.
Okay. No names. Tempting, but no names.
Oh,
Well,
yes.
no, no, not really.
Yeah.
The fun part, sometimes you get some fun stories. So I had a client coming in from Europe, and they had a painting hanging in their wall, and they had bought it. The husband had been an art aficionado, not his profession, but he loved buying art. And this particular piece was now going to be the center of Sotheby's sale for 5 million. So they were guaranteed $5 million no matter what, because this piece had appreciated tremendously. They'd bought well, and they didn't really want to keep it hanging in their European house because, it's a bit of a liability.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So they ended up doing this, and they said, all right, we're going to buy a New York City loft as, that's about the same price because we're guaranteed 5 million. So let's buy a place in Soho. So this was so much fun because we're like, this is like a joyous event. Like, what do you want? What can you get for 5 million? So we looked all over in Soho and a bit Tribeca, but Soho was really the wife. Again, they were business people, but she loved art. She wanted to have an art gallery. She was a photographer. We ended up in a place that was such fun. It was one of those co-ops, and it had this artist in residence old feature, but you didn't have to be an artist in
Okay.
residence, though she could prove it. And we ended up purchasing it for them, and they were very excited about it. And the piece of art sold, and they bought the property. And of course, nothing's perfect, like you said, in the world. You're buying this $5 million property. It's very cool. The one fun thing about it is that the retail space on the bottom of it in Soho, you may know, it's like a major mall of sorts because you have all this retail space on the bottom. So the retail space paid for your monthly cost, plus they paid you back, which was great fun because they didn't even have to pay monthly costs, which is a big cost in New York. So we did that. The only negative is that there were some artists who had within the building who had a little bit of an issue with the people who were selling. So when the people who were selling moved out, someone decided they liked their storage space better than theirs. So they took the storage
Oh,
space, their own stuff in the basement somewhere. So, I mean, everything's perfect and yet not perfect. What can you do? But
right.
that was fun. Somebody terrible. I had an experience where somebody recommended a referral, right? We started with the business of real estate as referral. And this
Mhm.
client was referred to me. And they said, well, so and so. And honestly, I know exactly who everybody is who refers me, but nobody called this person in. I did not have a recollection of this person's name that referred them in. And we both just didn't like each other. It very rarely happens. And I felt terrible through this whole thing. And a couple of times this person said to me, well, I mean, the reason why we're sticking with you is because, so and so recommended you. And I felt like I didn't want to say I'm not remembering who this person is. We just kind of got through it, but it was the weirdest thing that I had no recollection and we didn't like each other and we just powered through because of this referral, this connection that we
Mutual
should have.
connection that you don't know.
So, yes. Yeah. So both positives and negatives of experiences. And both of those clients were referrals, by the way. Yeah.
Okay, right, yes. But in that case where you didn't get along, you still did the right thing for them, and
Yeah.
obviously the transaction came together, so
Yes.
can't be that
Yes.
terrible. It's just
And the
something that
oddest part about that is it ended up that we ended up buying the apartment that they had rented 10 years ago when they were living in New York as young people. It was very strange. The whole
is it
thing was very strange, but yeah.
some little full circle that you didn't know the other half of the circle, and then they went
Yeah,
full circle and bought that apartment that they used to live in, and then
exactly.
so
Exactly.
well, you gotta
But
have
nowadays I have more people working in my teams. As much as I love the meeting, probably my favorite part of the job is meeting people, developing relationships with them. I'm sort of a little bit one step removed nowadays, unless it's a client that I really need to attend to. But I love seeing my agents have those stories and have those experiences too. It's a lot of fun.
That is interesting. Tell us about your team.
They're incredible. They're very they you have to walk the walk in New York. You need to be able to have owned real estate, or your family owns real estate, to be good at honestly talking about what to do with real estate with other people. Otherwise, I don't think you have
Can relate.
an honest relationship with it. It's pretty important to me, so that I make sure that I have people that are on that level.
That makes perfect sense. What else should we know about you that we haven't hit on here, Joan? What do you do for fun?
Oh, well, for fun, I have a broken wrist right now, but I would be skiing or traveling. So, or yoga, hot yoga. But I also involve philanthropically with the United Nations Hospitality Committee. So that's the thing I'm working on now. I try and put my weight behind something that I can sort of drive a little bit. So I like to have diversity of what I'm involved with.
No, that's awesome. The fact that you take time to give back, and you have all this great successful career, and now you've leveraged it obviously with having other agents working for you. So put together quite a nice business.
It's been a fun career. It's been a fun industry to work in. It's competitive, it's aggressive, but there are a million things that are wonderful about it too. And I suppose we're all a little bit competitive and aggressive at different times, so it works out okay.
I think you have to be competitive and aggressive to be in real estate. I'd say there's no way
I
around that.
think in anything, absolutely, in anything. Yeah. And I see that your company does AI, and that's a huge shift in the world of real estate nowadays. And we constantly see how it's playing out. And I think it's one of those things actually that even though certain components of AI will be helpful, certain components of AI will be disruptive or disrupt companies, I think it's like you always need someone to cut your hair. You will always need a good consultant to help you get through what is a big deal of getting from A to B, a new life experience for you, because that's what moving or getting a new piece of real estate for yourself in whatever capacity it is about.
Yes, I agree. I think you're still going to need that person to take you along and hold your hands along the
Yeah,
way. Make sure you're doing the
yeah,
right things, don't fall into
yeah.
the pitfalls. And meanwhile, there's all the technology to help find the properties, assess it. Maybe there'll be some AI that'll help you get that approval through the co-op easier in the future. Maybe there's a market for that. I don't know. Help the
Well, we
co-op
can
boards make
discuss it. I'm
decisions
happy to
easier.
try and help you, understand that. But luckily, the rest of the world doesn't seem to need to deal with that. So that's good.
Yes, that is good. Excellent. Well, I'd say with that, it's going to be a wrap here. So thank you,
Okay.
everyone, for joining the Technologies Now Business Edge Broker's Perspective episode. And Joan, thank you very much for joining me. If people want to get a hold of you or find your company, what's the best way to
Sure.
reach you?
Sure. David, again, thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasure to be with you. The easiest way is to call the company, 212-2482. Of course, you can email, but that also works for WhatsApp, excuse me. That's an easy one. We're on WeChat. We're on Borum. So bottom, we're all of those, sort of international communication places. But phoning the company, email jb@mbreny.com is good. And of course, you can simply look up on the web or Google us Manhattan Boutique Real Estate or mbreny.com. And happy to chat with anyone. If we can help you, great. If we can't and we put you forward to somebody else that can help you, also excellent. And again, thank you, David.
You're welcome. Thank you, Joan. Appreciate it.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Get it.